Hello and welcome to today's Vlogtober video. My name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns, I teach knitting workshops and I sell yarn. You can find all my details on my website at YarnAddict.co.uk, where you can also sign up to my newsletter. So please go and check that out and I'll put all the links below. So one of the things I said I would do in Vlogtober, as part of Vlogtober, was to try and make a start on this crochet blanket. So I've got a lot of my bits of sock yarn. Some of the skeins are quite big, like probably enough to knit a pair of socks in. Some of them are a bit smaller. I got some mini skeins, and then I have my advent calendar that I got last year, which I started doing crochet granny squares with. My plan was to crochet each mini into a crochet granny square, and then use probably like a light grey to join them all together, do like a final round and join them all together. Well, I've done 3 since January and most of the skeins are just in here. These are 10-gram minis, so they're quite small, 42 meters in each. So I've decided I don't fancy carrying on with this because they're a little bit small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a granny stripes blanket, because I wanted to do that for a while. But instead of, because on these tiny granny squares, I was probably, I don't know what size hook I was using. Oh, there it is. There's my hook. I was using a 3.5mm hook, which I don't really like using smaller crochet hooks. 3.5mm knitting needle's fine. 3.5mm. I probably wouldn't go anything smaller than a 3.5mm crochet because I don't like using small crochet hooks. But I've decided to hold 2 yarns together for this blanket. What I need to decide is, do I split each mini skein into 2 balls and hold 2 together, or do I hold 2 separate ones together? So for my swatch, which I think I've talked about already, but I haven't done anything more about it, I'm using 4.5mm hook, and I'm holding 2 balls together. I don't know which ones I'm holding. I think one is that one because they've all gotten tangled up in here. So I think those are the 2 I'm actually doing together at the moment. So very different colours. I think probably the easiest thing is just to hold 2 together, because I do have some balls that are a bit bigger. Some are self-striping, some are solid. So I think I'm just gonna grab 2 and go for it. I think that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to try and finish this swatch today. I just want to do a few rounds just so I can work out roughly how many stitches I need to start with. Don't know whether you can see it on this one, but I've actually started with a foundation, what they call foundation doubles. I'm using UK crochet terms, not US crochet terms. So it would be foundation singles. Foundation row, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but I don't like doing chains and then crocheting into my chain because I'm really bad at it. So I'm using these foundation stitches, and I used to use them a lot when I used to do crochet designs many years ago, but I haven't used them for a long time, so I've forgotten how to do them. So I found a tutorial on YouTube and I started this a few weeks ago and I haven't got any further. So I'm going to go and do a bit on that now and see if I can finish my swatch so that I can actually cast on for my blanket or start my blanket while it's still October. While it's still October, because this is one of the projects I want to work on in Vlogtober. But it's been really busy so far. I've been on holiday. There are reasons why I haven't got on with this. So I'm going to go and do some crochet now, and I'll come back and show you how I get on. So what I've done now is I have done my foundation row, and then I've done 2 rows of trebles. I'm using Attic 24's Granny Stripes pattern or tutorial on her website. What I realised is that I can't have the balls that I'm actually working with in my basket because it keeps getting tangled up in other yarns that are in here. This is my jelly basket I got in Norway, so I need to remember to take those out as I'm working on them. I'm going to probably do a couple of more rows to work out. I need to check the pattern what I'm doing next. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the main rows of this tutorial from Attic 24 blog into a notes section on my phone so I can access it easier. So if I don't touch this for a while, I can just go to the notes on my phone to find out what I'm doing. It may look better if you start with a chain rather than a foundation row, but I just can't do a chain. I hate doing a long chain and crocheting into the chain. I'm really rubbish at it. So because this is going to be a fairly big blanket, I think, I don't want to do that. If I'm going to do this, I have to make it something that I'm going to want to do. So even though the foundation row might look a bit too solid with the granny trebles, I don't know, but what I can do is I can just finish with like a row of double crochets at the top, and then because the side edges won't look that neat, I will have to do an edging all the way around, but as long as I make the top and bottom edge match, that'll be fine. But I'm not doing a chain. That's it. So I'm going to check the pattern, and then I'm going to do this swatch is quite small. I'm not too worried about the exact size of this blanket. I just want a rough size. I was thinking it'd be fun to make one that was big enough to fit a double bed, but I don't know if I'll make it that big. Maybe big enough to fit a single bed. I don't know, but I probably could have done with this swatch being a little bit wider, but I want to be really quick. But it'll give me a rough idea how many to start with. So I'm going to do a couple more rows. I'm not going to make this too tall because I mainly need to work out the width. So I'm probably going to do a couple more rows and then see if I can work out how many stitches I need to start with for this blanket. So I need to go downstairs and work a few more rows on that. But what I need to decide is what rows I'm going to do what colours I'm going to do the first rows in. Because what I'm planning to do is try and finish that swatch, work out how many stitches I need to cast on, and then actually cast on. So I need to decide what colours I'm going to do the first row in. So let's see what colours we have. Let's tip all these out again. I don't think I'm going to be like too organized about this and like divide them all into colors and pairings and things before I start. I want to work out how many rows, how much I need for each row. So I will weigh the first couple of balls I use to work out how much I'll need for each row. So I will probably start with 2 balls that I have a little bit more of. I'm just going to put the phone down for a second because this yarn was a little bit tangled up. So I might actually start with that one and that one. Those are actually from the same dyer, and I've knitted some socks from those recently. They're from Stag Fibre. I might start with those because I have a little bit more of those to see if that's enough for the foundation row, because that will take a bit more, I think. And then I also have my advent calendar that I need to use. So those 2 might be okay. That one's quite big, so I might split that one in 2. Once I know how much a row is going to take, I can decide whether to split things up and use 2 of the same size. For example, that one's quite a lot left. I could split that into 2 equal ones and use it. For example, I have one here, which is, I think that's West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn, and a solid one, which I think is opal. I could hold those 2 together, for example. Yeah, there's loads of options here. We'll see. I think I'm going to take those 2 with me and use those for the foundation row once I finish my swatch and work out how many stitches I will need to start with. So I finally made a start on my crochet blanket. I crocheted the little swatch, measured it, worked out how wide I wanted this blanket to be roughly, and then started it. So I used a foundation row down here. It's a foundation double crochet stitches. Rather than doing a chain and then working into the chain, which I hate, you basically work the chain and the foundation row together. So for the first row, I used those two colours together. And then I started using my advent calendar yarns from last year. And I've just grabbed two colours. I've tried to choose two that are kind of similar in colour. And just held them together to make like a variegated look. At the moment, because I wanted to do a bit of crochet while I filmed a normally I call them knit and chat, but this is a knit and crochet video, which will probably be out in November, early November. While I filmed that, I wanted to do a bit of crochet while I filmed it, so I hadn't wound any yarn. I didn't really have time to wind it, so I just grabbed these two because these were already wound. I think this is a sock yarn from, I think it's Dragon Hill Studios, and that one might be Little Grey Girl, but they're both yarns that I've used for socks. They're similar-ish in colour, so I'm holding those two together at the moment. So I started over here. They don't really go with the last colour I used, but I've decided not to worry too much about choosing colours that go together. I'm trying to make it random. When I hold two self-striping yarns together, it obviously gives you a slightly different look. So I've done nearly a row in that. I'm doing 3. I thought I would do 1 or 2 rows in each colour. I'm actually doing 3. So far I've done 3. So the first one I did the foundation row and then 1 row of trebles to set up the granny stripes pattern. And then I did 3 rows, 3 rows, 3 rows, and I'll do 3 of this one. By doing 3, it means that I alternate which end I start and finish on, so that I don't always start and finish on one side, and I'm actually crocheting in the ends as I start. So here is one that I crocheted in last night, so I just need to trim that, and that's the yarn I'm currently working with. I didn't crochet in the one from the beginning row, so I need to weave that in. Apologies if you can hear some noise in the background. My daughter is working in the room next door and she is on a video call, I think, at the moment. So in terms of width, I don't know how wide it is. So it's probably about nearly half the width of I'm sitting on my bed at the moment, probably nearly half the width of my bed, maybe just over. Probably about, I mean, it'll be big enough. I was thinking about trying to make it big enough to fit my double bed, so I could use it as like a bedspread. But I'm probably more likely to use it sitting on the sofa in the evenings. So I'm making it a bit narrower, but it's going to be wide enough to kind of cover myself when I sit in my chair knitting in the evening. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. I've been trying to do a little bit every night. I need to get on with some other projects, so it may be put on hold. I expect this is the project that will be brought out. I'll work on it regularly for a few days or a few weeks, and then it'll get put away again till the next time I have time to work on it. But I don't think this is going to be finished anytime soon, but that's fine. But holding 2 strands together, and I'm using a 4.5mm hook, works quite well because it does make it a little bit quicker. I just didn't fancy doing just a single strand of sock yarn. That's kind of what's been putting me off. But I do have a lot of leftover sock yarns and little bits, so at least this is a chance to use up that. And whatever I have left out of the 10-gram skeins, I'm just binning at the end. Bigger skeins, like bigger balls like this, I'll do 3 rows, then I'll break the yarn, join in a new yarn, and then later on in the blanket I'll come back to this again. Whereas the 10-gram mini skeins that I have from last year's advent, I'm using enough to do 3 rows and then I bin the rest. I think there's probably like only a couple of grams left of each colour. I can't be bothered to keep tiny amounts like that because it's not really going to do anything. Anyway, let me know what you do with your leftover yarns, your scraps of yarns. Tell me what you do with them, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.